Well, let's talk about Roman Scotland a little bit. And we all remember from Roman history that the Romans never conquered Scotland. But can you tell us a little bit about who the natives were? Who were they? What were they called? And just give us a little 30,000 foot view of them.
Yeah, so Scotland's actually invaded by the Romans on at least three occasions, big scale. There's probably a few other incursions, but it's three of them are the main invasions. The first one happens around 77 AD. That's during the Flavian period. Scotland at that time doesn't exist. Scotland, as we recognize it today, doesn't really come into existence until about the 10th century. So this is all part of Britannia. The Romans would have called it Barbaricum, so sort of the land of the barbarians, sort of north of the empire. It was occupied, probably occupied by, well, it's very difficult to say because the Romans tell us there are lots of tribes in Scotland, but we only have the Romans to say that. And the Romans that write about that never even came to Britain. So we're just sort of, that's a word of mouth thing. In general, we refer to them as the Caledoni. That's what crops up in some of the texts, Roman texts that relate to the first century. The second, they sort of last until about 86, 90 AD. There's a very big battle called Mons Graupius, happens somewhere in northern Britain. We have no idea where. It could be a figment of the writer's imagination. But then the Romans withdraw. They briefly step into Scotland when Hadrian comes about. There's a further invasion after that under the Emperor Antonius Pius. That's quite a brief one. And then there's a third one which happens under Septimius Severus around about 208 AD. That lasts a couple of years. And that's a very different campaign. That's a very what we would describe today as genocide. There's problems with the tribes, and he's determined to wipe them out. Around about that time, we start getting another, probably what we'd call an ethnic group today, described as the Picts. That's roughly translated as the painted people. Um, we know nothing about them. We've just got a Roman writer that sort of says Picts and Caledoni were invading the empire. We're very little, but they, we think, last well beyond the Roman period into 600, 700 AD. They do a lot of stone monuments later. Um, it's all very vague. And as with anything, our history comes a lot from the Roman writers, and they're the ones that are quite biased because they are the winners, they're the ones that write history. So Rome Scotland's a very vague place.